In this video, we'll go over all parameters associated with a calibrated device. First, we'll look at the output side. We'll have the sensitivity out, EQ out, and correction out. An input has the sensitivity in, correction in, and the gain in. The correction in is the correction after the acquisition in the analysis step. For example, our reference microphone response that we used in the memory list, or an ERP to DRP calibration. On the output side, the correction is the same. It's after the acquisition in the analysis step. So for example, the magnitude and the phase of an amplifier. The EQ out is a little different. This is applied on the stimulus before the acquisition. Let's open SoundCheck and look at some of these in a sequence. So first I'll just grab a stimulus from 8 kHz to 100 Hz, and we'll choose our calibrated mouth sim as the output signal path. Then we'll add a play and record going into our DUT mic, from our mouth sim. I'm actually using a reference mic though, so this should be very flat. And then we'll put in a harmonic track analysis step. And a display. We'll just run the sequence as is. Here you can see the fundamental. I'm just going to protect that to save it. This measurement doesn't look flat at all. That's because we haven't added our EQ. To do that, we'll double click and open up our stimulus step. In the bottom right, we'll click Advanced View. As a reminder, the EQ that's applied is dependent on the output path. So we'll click Apply EQ here, and then Update. This stimulus now applies the EQ we calibrated on it, and the stimulus itself will play back to get a constant SPL level out of the mouth. We'll run the sequence one more time, and we'll compare this level to our un-EQ'd stimulus. Now with an EQ'd stimulus, our fundamental looks very flat. Now that we looked at the effect of EQ, let's take a look at correction. So I'll make another quick sequence here with a stimulus, acquisition, analysis, and display, but this time I'll use my amp channel 1 and direct in 1. Direct in 1, again, is a 1 volt per volt input. So we see the result here of the magnitude and phase. The magnitude looks pretty flat and the phase looks pretty flat, but we still see a little bit of movement. Our amplifier, once calibrated, should be completely flat. In the case of most electronics, there isn't much that needs to be adjusted on the EQ side of it, but it's instead applied as correction. As we talked about earlier, this is applied after the stimulus and acquisition in the analysis step. We'll double click on analysis, and we can see two checkboxes for apply correction in and apply correction out. I'll click on apply correction out, which will use our correction from the amplifier signal path. Because this is done after the acquisition, we can just apply it now and see it updated. Once we hit apply, these lines flatten out.